Welcome to Wait, Ask Me Another. While answers and advice often appear as the best solutions to ease our suffering, curiosity is truly the cure for all things that ail us. It is the one remedy others will openly accept, and once they start to experience its impact, they will stop you and request, "Wait, ask me another."
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Wait, Ask Me Another. This is the coaching podcast where we look at the compelling questions of life through the lenses of personal life, work life, and we ask the actual questions that I find tend to be rhetorical for most people, but we actually say, like, what would happen if we attempted to answer them? And so our question of the day from Jenny and myself uh, is, what dream or idea do you deny? What dream or idea do you deny? It sounds like a great, grandiose, big dream, but hopefully, as we go through this conversation, you'll be able to hear some nuggets that will get your mind thinking about your dreams and how you treat them in a way that is tangible, in a way that you can actually kind of wrap your arms around them and decide, what do I actually want to do with my dreams? And maybe that will propel you forward a bit in acknowledging them and figuring out what it is that you want to move forward with in your life. So, Jenny, The
Yes.
Alchemist, a book I loved to hate.
That's funny because when I started assigning that book, didn't like it.
Really? I always thought you loved it.
No, Ruthie loved it. I didn't like it. I,
Yeah, I had such a hard time with it. But I think maybe one of the reasons I should say is that it does cut to the quick on a few key ideas that were hard for me to swallow. And one is the fact that the alchemist dreams of Mecca,
Mhm.
but doesn't ever go because he's built up in his mind an idea of what it will be, right? It's almost like he's pre lived it, but in his imagination. And so now he's so worried that the dream, the reality will not be as good as the dream that he doesn't even pursue it.
Uh,
And
you know, can I interrupt for a second? I think
sure,
that that's one of the reasons why I was like, what? Who does that?
right? And
And
talking about those rhetorical questions, right? Who does that? And then you
yes,
look at yourself and you're like, oh,
maybe I do. But it seems so far away from reality because nobody would actually do that. But don't I see this in myself. I see this in other people that we do it all the time in big and little ways.
mhm. And one of the things, if you're a person out there who is tasked with helping people, so say you're a social worker, say you're in medicine, say you're a manager, right? Is that, or even if you're like a sibling, we see people and we see their dream. We've heard their dream. They've talked about it at nauseum, or we see where they could be ready to take a step. And we want this for them so badly, but we can't actually move them, right? It's kind of like when you have a child, right? When they're an infant and a toddler, it's easy, right? We're going to go to the store. You take the child, you put the child in the seat, and you take the child to the store. But children don't stay children, they grow up. And when you have a teenager, you say, well, we're going to go to the store. Why? I don't want to. Right?
Mhm.
Or or they begin to have their own aspirations, but then we begin to see just the challenges of their attempting to approach them as they try to figure out, like, what does this mean for the rest of my life if I pursue this dream? So as much as we want to move them forward, we can't. It's not our role, it's not our place. um, but what we can do, I think, and you can chime in on this, Jay, is I think that we can help them understand what it is that they're actually searching for,
Mhm.
and then say, like, hey, these options are available for you. Now that you understand them, you know fully what you are either denying yourself or what you are allowing yourself. And I think that also actually even goes for us too. if we take the courage to not ask the rhetorical question, but actually ask the question, then we can really be aware of, what am I denying myself, or what am I willing to go out and to reach for?
Oh yeah, that piece of, I think first we have to know how the dream feels and what we want it to do for us.
Mhm.
Because I do have some dreams that are just daydreams. I think they're cool in my head, yet I'm pretty sure I don't want to put that much effort into it. And yet there's other dreams that I have been in my head for so long. And every time I think about it, it takes me to a different place. And I start this process of, what if? That'd be kind of cool. I can feel like the energy that there's a difference between the two.
Mhm.
And even some of those I think about, thank God I have friends like you, Teresa, that are willing to feed my ridiculousness. But even the silliness of the dream of, wouldn't it be cool if we played the piano, you sang, and we gave this talk?
Yeah.
And in my mind, I think about the alchemist, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, this will be amazing. And I was so afraid if we actually did it, it wouldn't be as cool as it was in my head. Yet there was a feeling every time I went to that daydream that I just couldn't ignore it. But there's other, like I have dreams about traveling certain places. Well, that'd be cool, but it's not pulling me there. There's certain, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. There's a
hoarding those.
difference between the daydream and that kind of idea or dream that grabs your gut and won't let go. Yeah, it
Yeah.
preoccupies your time. And
Hmm.
after a while, it's almost like it has to be realized, or you begin to feel a little hollow inside because it hasn't actualized.
Right. Right.
I think being me, I'm going to pull this up a level into like this larger meta world, but I think of these dreams and these ideas. So if we're not calling it a dream, let's call it an idea. Um, also apply to honestly everywhere, whole industries, right? And you and I've had these conversations about healthcare
Hmm.
and about, the suicide rate amongst providers, um, the need for something different to inject kind of the system of healthcare to help in a way that's so radical and so different that it just could work, right? And that
Right.
being
Right.
coaching. Um, and yet, when we come up to people and we talk about it, it's like, oh, coaching would be great as long as it's done this way. And it
Right.
can't be this way. And we need to make
Well,
sure
and
that,
are you a doctor? Are
right,
you, like, there's always this, let me alter your thought because you're not thinking about this correctly.
correct, right. And so the challenge with that, though, is what I've actually seen is that so many people that we've engaged have that conversation and then they get all bogged down and like, oh, but what about this way? And what about this way? And maybe the person would need to be a provider um, and a coach. And that 6, 12, 18, 24 months go by and nothing has been tried. Nothing
Hmm.
has been done. And I think about this, my first gig ever was in the public schools. And I would always tell them, like, we have a challenge here, people, because while we are thinking and pondering and saying, well, and asking the rhetorical over and over and over and over, every year we're graduating children out of the
Right.
public schools. Every year we're educating
The
and
problem
passing
hasn't
on.
changed, and it's
Right.
not getting any better.
Exactly. Because we're so stuck in the rhetorical question around this idea, and we keep, for whatever reason, denying it rather than giving it a shot.
Well, and I think that's why it's so easy for people to respond like the shopkeeper in The Alchemist too, is that when we are brave enough to say out loud, here's an idea, and I really think it could work, is when people respond back and say, well, that's a good idea, but you got to consider this, you got to change this, you got that then when you go to, well, I'm just going to put it back in my head, because in my head it's amazing, and you just changed the whole dream.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it's insane, but we are doing this constantly, and I don't think we're actually better off for it. What would be the other way to respond?
For us, or for when somebody shares their idea?
I think a little bit of both. Um, if I've got an idea and I have been stuck in the rhetorical, what helps me to get out from that, do you think?
Well, I think one is, who's gonna fight for it if you don't fight for it?
Mm, good
and
question.
and you know and if you really believe, like your example of working in the public school system, if you believe in your work, and you believe in your idea, and you can see that nothing is changing, and you really are in this place of, if I choose to do nothing, if I choose to put that dream back in its box, am I choosing not to help?
Mm, yeah.
Am I choosing to be like everybody else?
Uh, that's really compelling. I think also that's a great question to actually ask ourselves. And then your other question was, what do we ask people, or how do we respond to people who um, we see their dream and they're trying to live out their dream, or at least attempted or approach it. They've articulated it, right?
Hmm.
The other thing that I think that we all need to understand is that whether or not I choose to keep it in that box or I choose to let it out, that these are not a matter of good choice, bad choice. It's simply a matter of choice in the moment. And by that, I mean, I'll use this example. We had a student who had to make some decisions about her own life, uh, and kind of saw the threshold that she needed to cross to do so. But she had things that she valued, and she had other dreams that existed on one side, and then the possibility that existed on the other. And in that moment, for that time, she made the choice and said, I'm staying over here. I'm not going to cross that threshold. But what I saw inside of her decision was this strength, because now she knew what she was standing for, even if there was another dream on the other side. And I thought that was wonderful, because when she does finally, maybe say later on in life, you know what? It's worth it. I have the ability, the time to go to this other dream and to pursue it. She'll also stand equally as strong in that one, because she's more clear on where she stands either way. So it's not necessarily a good choice, bad choice. It's the choice that I'm making in the moment, but it allows me to pursue something on either side wholeheartedly. T.S. Eliot has this poem called The Hollow Man, and it's all about equivocation. These people that just sit on the fence and how they're shadows of themselves,
Hmm.
because they cannot choose whole heart one way or another. This gives people that opportunity, no matter what choice they make.
Well, and I think it also gives language to uh, these conversations. When somebody says, I thought you were doing this, that you can confidently say, I am going to do that. And right now, this is a priority. This is my dream that I'm fulfilling. And so it gives us a space and I think almost permission to hold our dream where we want it to be and then take care of the other dreams or needs that need to come first.
Mhm. I think the other thing that's a coordinate that people can kind of dance around is, would I be okay if this dream shifted or changed in the future? So I'm going to say it this way: dreams have expiration dates, but not in the way that we think, right? The, the dream itself may shift or change while the opportunity remains the same. So the details around it. And am I okay with that? So I have a dream one day of having a yurt village. I am not in the position to pursue the yurt village
You
at this
still have the dream, Teresa. I give you credit for that.
still. It stays.
I
Um,
can't wait to hang out in your yurt village.
it's been hard for me because I really don't have the ability to pursue it at this time. The coordinates aren't right. Uh, just time of life, the things I need to pursue, things I want to put in place, right? But one of the coordinates I had to say is, okay, I saw myself actually about 3 years ago in my lovely yurt village. Like, this is gonna be my new life, right? Um, and I had to think to myself, would I be okay if I have gray hairs in this picture,
Mm,
right? If it happens that far later on in life, would I be okay if I'm not gardening with my 7 and 6-year-old children, but my 27 and 26-year-old children? So
and how did you answer that?
I have finally been able to answer that in the affirmative. Yeah.
Excellent.
Um, but in order to have that with my 27 and 26-year-old child, there's some dreams I have now about how close I am with my children.
Mm,
And I'm pursuing that relationship where I am, so that hopefully maybe that dream does take place in the future.
that's funny. As you were talking, I was thinking about even, and I didn't know that this was a dream, but clearly it is because I, I go outside every single night and work in this mess of a yard garden. And I find myself daydreaming all the time about what else could I do? Yet it's not like I'm going to become this famous master gardener, but I want part, and I don't know if this, Teresa, maybe you could tell me if this is part of the dream, is acknowledgement for what I conjure up. And like, I kill more things than I grow, and I make a ton of mistakes. So what I have decided to do that makes what I have in my head, even though whatever is in my head that I dream up doesn't look at all the same
Mhm.
when I try to execute it, is there's a little girl next door that every other week I go get her and I take her
Mhm.
through what I've done and say, okay, Molly, tell me what you think of this. Molly,
Yeah.
tell me what you think of this. And so it keeps my dream alive because she's like, it's amazing. And so, like, you adjusted your dream for age. I can have gray hair. I adjusted that dream
Mm.
for a standard of approval.
And I think that's perfectly fine, right? Because it helps you to live it, right?
So I can still live it. Am I going to be in the magazines? No.
No. But you do have approval that it's amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, for those who are listening or watching this, we want to encourage you to consider the questions around the question, right? Um, because we've talked about things that, for example, crowd out our dreams. So when we start to think of what is it that's crowding out my dream, um, what is it that I really need to say or hear about this dream? Not even necessarily about the pursuit of the dream, but about the dream itself, right? And who else would be impacted by it? When you think of all of those things, then you get to come back to our original question um, of what dream or idea do you deny? And what is it that you want to do with that?
Wow.
Knowing that, truly examining it, truly looking at it, not taking it as a rhetorical exercise, but being like, hey, I want to really dig into these questions, leaves you stronger with it than if you didn't do that, right? It leaves you in this place where you can say, hey, this might be a reality today, the reality that I'm going to pursue. This might be my future reality, but no matter what, I know what it could give me. And I know um, that it's something that could possibly be for me.
Exactly. Otherwise, I don't think it would show up and tap you.
Hmm. Again and again.
Exactly. Yeah. How crazy it may sound, it's there for a reason. And so if you want the questions that Teresa just asked, they will be at learningjourneys.net, and they are on a sheet, the curious question resource. So you can get them there. And we are going to leave you with the question we started with and a follow-up question. What dream or idea do you deny? And also, what else gets denied because of it?